Oh, that feeling, that sinking in your stomach when you see a negative item pop up on your credit report. We've all been there, right? But here's the thing. What if you could take all that stress, all that uncertainty, and turn it into a clear, actionable plan? Well, that's exactly what we're going to do in this explainer. All right, let's just jump right in. Picture this. You get that email notification, you log in to check your report, and bam, there it is. Your first gut reaction is probably to panic, right? I mean, whose isn't? But what if your very next move wasn't about emotion at all? What if it was a totally calm, totally calculated step forward? And that's really our whole goal here. We want to give you a solid framework so you can actually see your real options. Because here's the secret. Once you get how the system works, you're the one back in the driver's seat. Okay, first things first, we've got to start with a pretty big mindset shift. We need to completely reframe what a negative item on your report even is. I know it feels super personal, like a direct hit, but it's really not. You know, what I love about this idea is how it just takes all the personal sting out of it. The credit system, it's basically a giant unfeeling machine that just records data. It has no idea about your story, your life, or why something happened. It just registers an event. And when you look at it that way, it helps get rid of that feeling of shame and lets you focus on what really matters, the mechanics of the system. So this is huge. Not all negative items are created equal, not even close. Lenders are really looking at four main things. First up is how recent it is. You can just think of a calendar here. A late payment from last month is going to have a way bigger impact than one from, say, 3 years ago. Then there's severity. Picture a set of scales, right? A foreclosure is going to weigh a lot more than one single missed payment. Third is how often it happens. Is this a one-time slip-up or is it becoming a pattern? And finally, is it resolved or is it still an open issue? An unpaid collection account is sending a totally different signal than one that's been paid off or settled. Each of these things helps tell a completely different story. And this is so important to get. Most of the really serious negative items, they don't just show up out of the blue. They actually follow a pretty predictable path. Think of it like an escalation timeline that you can see coming. This timeline really lays it all out. It all starts with a single missed payment. That's the trigger. Then, around the 30-day late mark, that first negative report usually gets made. By 60 or 90 days late, the warning signals for lenders start getting a lot louder. And if it goes on for a few more months, that's when the account might get charged off or sold to a collection agency. Why does this matter? Because when you understand these stages, you can see exactly where you have chances to step in and change the outcome. Okay, so we've got the timeline down. Now let's talk about the rulebook. Because credit reporting isn't just the Wild West where anything goes. Nope, it's actually a regulated system, and it has very specific procedures.
And this is probably the most crucial point of the whole thing. A lot of us approach a credit problem like we're trying to win a debate, pleading our case, telling our side of the story. But the system, it's just not built for that. It's not designed for a debate. It's designed to follow a process. The second you shift your thinking from arguing your case to navigating the process, your entire strategy becomes way more effective.
Here's something that trips a ton of people up. There are actually two totally different sets of rules we're dealing with. You've got credit reporting rules on one side and debt collection rules on the other. Reporting rules are all about what shows up on your report and making sure it's accurate. Collection rules are about how someone can legally try to get you to pay. If you mix these two up, you're just going to spin your wheels. So for right now, we're zeroing in on those reporting rules, the ones all about accuracy and process. This all leads us to a really important word: verification. See, when you dispute something on your report, the system isn't asking, hey, was this fair to you? It's asking a much simpler question. Does the information they're reporting match what's in their records, and did they follow the rules when they reported it? That's it. It's just a procedural check. And that's why a dispute that points out a factual error, like a wrong date or an incorrect amount, is so much more powerful than one that's just based on explaining why it was a tough time for you personally. All right, so let's recap. We've got the right mindset, we understand the timeline, and we know about the rules. So what can you actually do about it? Well, it pretty much boils down to 3 core strategic options you have for any negative item you're facing. Think of it like a toolkit. You've got 3 main tools: dispute, resolve, and wait. You use dispute when you find something that's flat out wrong. You use resolve when the debt is legitimate and you need to stop the bleeding, basically. And then there's wait.
Sometimes, honestly, the smartest move you can make is to strategically wait, let an old item lose its power over time, and focus all your energy on building up new, positive credit history.
But here's a classic mistake, and a lot of people make it. They hear the word dispute and just decide to challenge everything, even stuff they know is accurate, just to, give it a shot. What usually happens? The information just gets verified as correct and stays right where it is. It's a total waste of time and energy.
The strategic way to do it is to think of a dispute like a surgeon's scalpel, not a sledgehammer. You use it precisely only when you have a specific, fact-based reason to question if the information is accurate, complete, or verifiable. When you do that, you're playing by the system's own rules, and that's when you can actually win.
So the big question is, how do you know which tool to pick for your specific situation? Well, let's walk through a really simple 3-step decision-making process. This will help you figure out if you should dispute, resolve, or wait. Step 1, and it's the most basic one. Is the information inaccurate or incomplete? Just look at it. Check the dates, the amounts, the account status. Is every single part of it factually correct? If the answer is no, if you see something that's wrong, well then a dispute is probably your best first move. If everything looks accurate though, then we just move on to step 2. Okay, so the info is accurate. Now you have to ask about its current status. Is this an active account that's still causing damage every month? Is it standing in the way of a huge short-term goal, like getting a mortgage in the next 6 months? If the answer to any of that is yes, then resolving that debt, paying it, or settling it is probably your most strategic move. It creates stability and clears the road ahead. And finally, step 3. Let's say the item is accurate, but it's pretty old and it's not really blocking you from doing anything right now. You have to ask yourself a tough question. Is it actually better to do something about this now, or is it better to just wait? Because sometimes the absolute best thing you can do is not poke the sleeping bear. Instead, you focus 100% of your energy on building a mountain of positive credit history all around it. Over time, all that good stuff will just drown out the old bad stuff. And that right there is really the core message of all this. It's not about finding some secret trick or a magic loophole online. Real, lasting improvement to your credit comes from understanding how the system works, making calm and strategic choices, and just consistently building good habits over time. At the end of the day, your credit report is really just a story told with data points. And look, you can't go back and erase the old chapters, but what you can do by understanding the rules and making intentional choices is take control of the pen. You absolutely get to write what happens next. So the only question left is, what story are you going to choose to build starting today?